was a roller coaster ride to glory for the Auburn Tigers.
Here's the straight T formation. Slack's going to roll out. Call his own number on the keeper play. He dives to the pylon. He's in. Touchdown, Auburn! Reggie Slack faked the pitch.
It was a year of celebration. It marked the 50th anniversary of Jordan-Hare Stadium. And it capped off a decade which saw the return of championships in Auburn athletics. But it will be remembered most as the year Alabama came to Auburn to play the biggest game in the history of Auburn football.
Blue 28, set, cut.
The Tigers began preparations for the season in a new home, the Auburn Athletic Complex. The result of years of study and planning, the complex combines state-of-the-art technology with functional design. It gives Auburn's athletes and coaches the tools and support to compete as one of the premier programs in college football. On the field, a young team searched for its own identity, knowing it had an opportunity to capture an unprecedented third consecutive SEC championship. It would be a difficult challenge. The Tigers, with 8 new starters on defense, were charting their course through the toughest schedule in the conference. September began with smooth sailing against Pacific and Southern Mississippi. But storm clouds thundered in on the banks of the Tennessee River. The loss in Knoxville certainly hurt, but it also provided a catalyst for the development of Auburn's defense, one that by season's end would rank as one of Pat Dye's finest. The unifying force of this unit was All-America linebacker Quentin Riggins.
Quentin Riggins is a coach's dream. I mean, he's a guy that is going to be where he's supposed to be all the time. He's a very intense football player, smart. He's played ever since he was a freshman and done an outstanding leader for us and just a very solid citizen.
His 165 tackles led the team, but more importantly, his presence on the field set the standard for effort and intensity.
I look at it when I'm out there, it's my defense, it's my team, and I'm a senior this year, and I can't go out there and do nothing but the best and give 110%, and the only way I can do that is have my game face on every day, and every time it's time to go out there and play football, and I feel a lot of guys look at it the same way, and off the field, I could be, just as relaxed as I want to be, but on the field, it's time to get serious.
After the Tennessee loss, the Tigers continued north to Lexington with their heads bloodied but unbowed. Serious hitting by the improving defense and timely execution by the offense netted the Tigers a much-needed 24-12 victory on the road. The next challenge, a tough LSU team with an explosive offense and a stingy defense. LSU had upset Auburn in 1988 with a 7-6 come-from-behind win in the closing minutes at Baton Rouge. Now, it was payback time. The Tigers' intentions were evident on their very first possession. James Joseph and Stacy Danley spearheaded an Auburn assault to the LSU goal line. Wynn Lyle drew first blood with a 26-yard field goal. Then, the Auburn defense flexed its muscle. Fernando Horn, Larry Young, and All-SEC tackle David Rocker were in Tommy Hodson's face all afternoon. Auburn crushed LSU's rushing game, yielding only 56 yards on the ground. Still, LSU held a 6-3 edge with less than 9 minutes remaining when Shane Wasden fielded a punt deep in Auburn territory. Wasden's remarkable return was the spark that ignited Auburn's offense. Suddenly, the Tigers found daylight where there had been none before. Stacey Danley's one-yard plunge put Auburn ahead 10-6. And this year, there would be no last-second miracles for LSU. This time, it was the Auburn Tigers who came through in the waning moments, on 3rd and long with the game on the line. In a glimpse of things to come, Reggie Slack and the Tiger offense had delivered the big play to seal the victory. Auburn's 10-6 triumph was just what this growing team needed. It was a hard-fought, tenacious performance on both sides of the ball. The Tigers were forging the camaraderie that would carry this team through the tough times ahead.
It gave us a lot of confidence. It helped bring the whole team together, moving the ball against a defense like LSU had. They had excellent talent, and you know, we went out and basically ran it straight at them and got the job done.
The euphoria following the victory over LSU faded quickly, however, in the wake of a 22-14 loss at Florida State. Despite flashes of brilliance, the offense was sputtering. So Coach Dye made a critical mid-course adjustment.
There's no doubt that early in the season we struggled offensively, and you know, you try to have a plan every week to win with, and we just weren't executing our plan. So we went back and simplified and made what we were doing simple and got more repetition on it, and as a result got better execution.
Against Mississippi State, it was back to basics: blocking, tackling, and execution. The goal was simple on offense: stay on the ground, win the battle on the line of scrimmage, and thereby win the game. The game plan suited James Joseph to a T. He enjoyed his finest day as a Tiger, rushing for 172 yards and a touchdown on his 22nd birthday. The defense had come a long way since that stormy day at Tennessee. Led by All-America linebacker Craig Ogletree's 3 sacks, Auburn's defense held the Bulldogs to 161 yards total offense and recorded its second shutout of the season. The 14-0 victory was a giant step forward for the Tigers. With a record of 5-2, they turned toward Amen Corner, hoping the hard-earned lessons of October would serve them well in November. Reggie Slack and Quentin Riggins had traveled Amen Corner before and knew what SEC football in November was all about. This game against the Florida Gators would be more than X's and O's. It would be a test of dedication, determination, and pride. Florida scored first following an Auburn fumble on the 5-yard line, but the Gators would not see the Tigers' end zone again. This game belonged to the Auburn defense. There was simply no escaping the Tigers' dogged pursuit. The Gators' Emmitt Smith came to Auburn as the nation's leading rusher, averaging more than 160 yards per game. But Auburn cut his production in half, allowing the great number 22 only 86 yards on the ground. Jordan-Hare Stadium erupted in the second quarter when Reggie Slack found Auburn's leading receiver, Alexander Wright, streaking down the sideline. But the joy was short-lived. The touchdown was called back because of a penalty. And in an Auburn-Florida game, that can be a very important call. Florida was also playing some hard-nosed defense, but Auburn broke through late in the third quarter. Win Lyle's 47-yard field goal hit the uprights and bounced through, but the Tigers were on the board. Quentin Riggins, Darrell Crawford, Craig Ogletree, and Elton Billingsley had dominated the Florida offense, but the Gators still clung to a 7-3 lead. With time running out, Auburn started its final offensive assault. The Tigers fought their way down the field, but the Gators stiffened inside their own 30, bringing up 4th and 11 with only 26 seconds left.
They trail 7-3. Slack's got one setback and 4 wide receivers. Desperation play. Slack's going to throw in the end zone. Got a man wide open. Larson, he's got it. Touchdown, Auburn! Touchdown, Auburn! Touchdown, Auburn! Unbelievable! I've seen the impossible happen. I have seen a miracle.
There have been some incredible endings in the 50-year history of Jordan-Hare Stadium, but none more thrilling. The foundation for this miraculous victory had been forged by outstanding defense and unflappable courage. On one play, the Tigers answered any questions about this team's personality. This was a tough, determined team. Through the ups and downs, they had developed a never-say-die attitude that would serve them well through the concluding struggles of the 1989 season. The player perhaps most responsible for developing the winning spirit of this team was quarterback Reggie Slack. Against both LSU and Florida, he simply refused to give in to pressure. He refused to be beaten. Statistically, he threw for more than 200 yards 5 times in 1989 and ranked second only to his position coach, Pat Sullivan, in career passing totals. Against Georgia, Reggie and his fellow seniors wanted one more win between the hedges. Not only did they get it, but they dominated the Bulldogs in every phase of the game. Greg Taylor, emerging as another deep threat for the Auburn offense, had his best day of the season against the Dogs. The offense dominated time of possession in the first half, controlling the ball for nearly 20 of the first 30 minutes. Freshman Darrell Williams enjoyed his finest day as a Tiger, gaining 128 yards on 26 carries. The well-balanced attack provided a 17-0 halftime lead, which turned the defense loose. It punished Georgia's running game, limiting the Bulldogs to just 48 yards rushing, their lowest total in 13 seasons. All-SEC defensive back John Wiley turned in a Player of the Week performance, stopping 2 drives with pass interceptions inside the Auburn 25-yard line. The 20-3 victory was Auburn's 3rd straight over Georgia. More importantly, the Tigers were peaking at the right time and still had a chance to claim a share of the SEC crown with a victory in 2 weeks over Alabama. And a chance is all Pat Dye teams ever asked for.
You know, today we knew that we had to dig down and get something a little extra for Georgia because we knew they were coming off a big win off Florida. You know, they played a great game, and we knew we had to dig down and get something extra, and I think we did that today, and the guys came together great, and I think we had our best offensive performance of the year, and we came out on top.
The offense had come a long way. Its success began in the trenches, where All-SEC center John Hudson set the standard for hard work and leadership. Together with Bob Meeks, Rob Selby, Mark Rose, and Anthony Brown, this line endured the tough times and matured into a formidable unit. At left guard, sophomore Ed King became one of the youngest All-America linemen in the country.
He's the most talented football player I've seen since I've been here. I mean, as far as being an offensive lineman. You know, he's young, but he plays with so much enthusiasm and quickness that you really can't tell how young he is unless you were just looking for little mistakes that you don't even notice because of the big things he's doing.
Behind this line, the Tigers' tandem of starting running backs, Stacey Danley and James Joseph, provided their own style of leadership.
I think James and Stacey, the type of leadership they display is totally opposite. James is you can say he's the rah-rah type, and Stacey, he's kind of laid back, but both of them, they get the point across, and it's helped our team this year.
Back in 1939, it would have been hard to imagine that on its 50th anniversary, Jordan-Hare would rank as the 5th largest on-campus stadium in the country. The original structure seated only 7,500. During the 1940s, the Tigers were forced to play most of their games on the road. The stadium capacity was just 34,500 when Auburn won its national championship in 1957. The success of Coach Shug Jordan's teams spurred even more growth. By the 1970s, the Tigers had a proper home, and one by one, their traditional foes came to play at Auburn, all except the Crimson Tide. There were some who said Alabama would never come to Auburn. But times change. It's perhaps fitting that on the stadium's 50th anniversary, Alabama finally made its first trip to Auburn. Alabama at Auburn. Auburn's 50-year dream of equality was about to become a reality. December 2nd, 1989 was a day like no other. This Auburn-Alabama game was much more than an athletic contest. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. As the Tigers departed Sewell Hall for the traditional Tiger Walk to Jordan-Hare Stadium, they understood, perhaps for the first time, just how special this game and this day was to Auburn people. It was an unforgettable feeling that these young men took with them into the locker room and onto the playing field. Inside the stadium, the record crowd of 85,319 was already rocking. An hour before kickoff, you couldn't find an empty seat in the house. There was a special kind of electricity surrounding the spectacle. But Pat Dye and the Auburn Tigers were unfazed. Their sights were set firmly on the Crimson Tide. Alabama, number 2 in the nation, was undefeated, already owned a share of the conference title with a chance at a possible national championship. But Auburn had come too far to fall short. They too could win a share of the coveted SEC title, and they were defending their own home turf. A lifetime of anticipation was almost unbearable. The Tigers wasted little time in asserting the home field advantage, going for it all just 3 plays into the game.
Reggie Slack needing 5 yards on 3rd down. Is going to throw long to Alexander Wright. Oh, a great catch over the shoulder inside the 10, down to the 7-yard line as he beat Ephraim Thomas, who made the tackle down at the 7. Reggie Slack threw a beautiful pass, and Wright took it over his left shoulder as he raced down that eastern sideline.
A 6-yard run by Alabama nemesis Stacy Danley took the ball to the goal line.
All right, here's Auburn 3rd down and goal just inside. It's 1 full house backfield, 2 tight ends. Give up the middle, over and in is Joseph as he dives in. Touchdown, Auburn! James Joseph took the handoff from Reggie Slack and just went airborne, catapulting his way over the Alabama defenders and into the end zone, and Auburn has struck quickly with 12:10 left in the first quarter. The Tigers lead 6-0.
The quick score was a stunning blow, but it failed to dampen Alabama's intensity. The Tide had championship dreams of its own. Auburn's defense played brilliantly throughout the first half. But 2 turnovers led directly to Crimson Tide scores. Alabama held the upper hand at the half, leading 10-7. But longtime observers of this rivalry knew the battle had just begun. Early in the 3rd quarter, Auburn's offense took control. Reggie Slack's 60-yard pass to Shane Wasden had Auburn fans back on their feet. James Joseph took the Tigers to the doorstep with his pass reception.
Auburn inside the Bama 2 for a second down play. Joseph goes up and over. Joseph is in. Touchdown, Auburn! James Joseph has scored his second touchdown for the Auburn Tigers, who go ahead of the Alabama Crimson Tide with 10:36 remaining in the third quarter by the score of 13-10.
Rob Selby and Brad Johnson collapsed the left side of Alabama's defense, enabling Joseph to fly untouched into the end zone. It was obvious the intensity level had moved up another notch. This time, it resulted in an Alabama turnover, giving the Tigers an opportunity to strike. Reggie Slack once again found Alexander Wright streaking down the sideline. The catch put Auburn into field goal range for academic all-conference Win Lyle. His 22-yard field goal put the Tigers up by 7. Late in the third quarter, Auburn began a time-consuming, gut-wrenching drive that lasted well into the final stanza. The Tigers moved in for the kill as Slack's passing and the running of Stacy Danley pounded the Alabama defense.
2nd and 9 at the Bama 12. One running back is Lectron Williams behind Reggie Slack. Heel toss sweep. Williams to the short side. He's at the 10. He's at the 5. He's in! Touchdown, Auburn! Gerald Williams. The block thrown by Chris Gray. Auburn 23, Alabama 10.
By midway in the quarter, Auburn had moved out to a 27-10 lead. But in these pressure-packed confrontations, no lead seems large enough.
Hollingsworth wants to throw. He fires over the middle. Pass is broken up, incomplete. D'Amico Anderson hit the intended receiver, John Casmus.
Alabama would fire everything it had against Auburn's tenacious defense, but in the end, it would not be enough. Auburn people had waited 50 years for this moment. The Tigers would not be denied. Auburn's leading rusher against Alabama the last 3 years, Stacy Danley, put the finishing touches on a 130-yard rushing performance. He gave the Tigers' all-time field goal leader, Win Lyle, a chance to drive the final nail.
Angle to the left. The ball will be placed down on the near side hash mark by Dickinson. There's the kick. Kick is away. Kick is good! Auburn 30, Alabama 20. .33 seconds to go. Let the celebrating begin.
The victory over Alabama symbolized how far this team had come in 1989. For Auburn people everywhere, it was an emotional moment, never to be forgotten.
As much as anything, it completes a cycle as far as Auburn football is concerned. For years, you know, Auburn played their biggest games on the road. They've got Georgia to come here. Florida's been here. Tennessee started playing the home and home at Auburn and Georgia Tech before that series was dropped. And Alabama is the one that finishes out the cycle as far as a dream that Coach Beard and Coach Jordan had years and years ago.
The Tigers celebrated their third straight SEC championship at Tampa Bay's Hall of Fame Bowl. Auburn's 5th consecutive New Year's Day Bowl appearance. The game against Ohio State would settle a 30-year-old score, dating back to 1957, when both teams were voted #1 in the country. This game seemed to mirror the season itself. After a lackluster opening, the Tigers exploded for 31 straight points and ended the day dominating the Buckeyes 31-14. This was one of the most rewarding seasons in the Pat Dye era, and a fitting way to cap off the decade of the 1980s. This team never lost faith during the tough times, and it became a great team the Auburn way, through hard work, dedication, and respect for one another. It was truly a year of celebration and a season of Auburn football glory.